Newborn speaks and shocks the doctor into panic. Can you imagine a baby, fresh into the world, saying something that makes even the doctor run out of the room in shock? What could a newborn possibly say that would cause such chaos in the delivery room? Get ready for a story that will leave you speechless. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more unbelievable stories like this one. The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the corridors of Seattle Grace Memorial Hospital, casting a sterile glow across the polished floors where Dr. Benjamin Harding's footsteps echoed through the quiet hallway. 23 years of delivering babies had earned him a reputation as the most composed obstetrician in the Pacific Northwest. Yet nothing in his extensive career could have prepared him for what was about to unfold on this rain-soaked October evening. The weight of his pager felt unusually heavy against his hip as he made his way toward labor and delivery room 4. Emily Johnson, a first-time mother, had been in labor for 16 hours. Her husband Matt, a software engineer with kind eyes and nervous hands, had barely left her side, his tablet abandoned hours ago on a nearby chair, work emails going unanswered as the miracle of birth took precedence over quarterly reports and deadline meetings. "Everything looks perfect, Emily," Dr. Harding assured her, his voice carrying the warmth and confidence that had comforted thousands of mothers before her. "The baby's heartbeat is strong and steady." He glanced at the monitor, noting the regular peaks and valleys of contractions marching across the screen like a mountain range drawn in green light. The labor and delivery unit buzzed with its usual quiet efficiency. Nurses moved with practiced grace, their soft-soled shoes whispering against the floor as they checked vital signs and adjusted equipment. The scent of antiseptic mingled with the lavender essential oil Emily had brought from home, creating an atmosphere that straddled the line between clinical precision and human comfort. As the hours ticked by, the storm outside intensified, raindrops percussion against the windows providing a natural rhythm to Emily's breathing exercises. Matt wiped his wife's forehead with a cool cloth, murmuring encouragements that seemed to float in the dim light of the delivery room. The scene was familiar to Dr. Harding. He had witnessed this dance of new life thousands of times before, each unique yet following the same ancient choreography that had brought every human being into the world. But this night was different. This night would change everything. The first sign that something extraordinary was about to happen came not from any medical equipment or clinical observation, but from the subtle shift in the air itself. Later, when Dr. Harding would try to explain it to his colleagues, he would struggle to find the right words. It was as if the atmosphere in the room had suddenly become charged with an energy that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up, like the moment before lightning strikes. The delivery itself proceeded smoothly, Emily's strength and determination carrying her through each push, Matt's steady presence anchoring her through the waves of effort. When their daughter finally arrived, her first cry pierced the air with the clarity of a bell, strong and healthy. But it was what happened next that would haunt Dr. Harding's dreams for years to come. As he held the newborn, preparing to place her on Emily's chest for that crucial first moment of skin-to-skin contact, the baby's eyes opened. They were not the unfocused, slate-blue eyes of most newborns, but sharp, clear, and somehow ancient. And then, impossible as it seemed, the tiny lips parted, and words emerged, clear, distinct, and carrying a weight that seemed to bend reality itself. "Don't be afraid." The words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore or dismiss. Dr. Harding's hands began to tremble, memories of another night, 20 years ago during his residency, crashing through the careful walls he had built around that experience. The same words, spoken by another newborn, in another hospital, on another stormy night. He barely registered the gasps from the nursing staff, or the way Matt Johnson's face had drained of color. The room seemed to spin, and before he could process what was happening, his feet were carrying him toward the door, his mind reeling with the implications of what he had just witnessed. In his office, Dr. Harding's trembling hands pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk, reaching past folders and forgotten paperwork to extract a leather-bound journal he hadn't touched in nearly 2 decades. The binding crackled as he opened it, releasing the musty scent of archived memories. His eyes scanned the yellowed pages, finding the entry from October 12, 2003, the first time he'd witnessed a newborn speak. The similarities were uncanny. The same words, the same clarity in the infant's eyes. Even the weather had been similar. A storm raging outside, while something equally powerful stirred within the hospital walls. He had documented everything meticulously back then, driven by a mix of scientific curiosity and an almost primal need to make sense of what he'd witnessed. Down the hall, Emily Johnson cradled her daughter, her mind still struggling to process what had transpired. The baby now slept peacefully, showing no signs of the extraordinary event that had just occurred. Matt sat beside them, his hand resting protectively on the edge of the hospital bed, his eyes never leaving their child's face. "She looks so normal," Emily whispered, tracing a finger along her daughter's perfect, tiny features. "How can something so impossible have just happened?" The nursing staff moved around them with professional efficiency, but their usual casual chatter was replaced by a heavy silence. Each one of them had witnessed something that defied explanation, and none of them quite knew how to proceed. Medical training hadn't prepared them for speaking newborns or messages that seemed to transcend the natural order. Sarah Chun, the head nurse who had assisted in over 3,000 deliveries during her 15-year career, found herself repeatedly checking the baby's vital signs, despite every reading showing perfect health. "Everything is completely normal," she reported, her voice carrying a note of bewilderment. "Heart rate, oxygen levels, reflexes, all exactly what we'd expect from a healthy newborn." As the night shift gave way to morning, news of the incident began to spread through the hospital like ripples in a pond. Dr. Harding knew it was only a matter of time before he would have to address what had happened. But first, he needed to understand it himself. His fingers traced the words he'd written so long ago, finding patterns he'd missed before. The previous case had involved a baby boy born to a young couple from Portland. The infant had spoken those same 3 words, "Don't be afraid," before falling into a normal newborn sleep pattern. Dr. Harding had spent years researching similar incidents, discovering scattered reports throughout history. A case in 19th century London, another in medieval France, and whispered stories from ancient Greece. Each incident had preceded significant historical events, some challenging, others transformative, but all marking turning points in human history. The London case had occurred just before the Industrial Revolution gained momentum. The French incident had preceded a period of unprecedented scientific discovery. And now, here in Seattle, another child had delivered the same message. Dr. Harding closed the journal and looked out his office window at the storm-darkened sky. The rain had begun to ease, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent that seemed to signal new beginnings. He thought about Emily and Matt Johnson, about their daughter who had entered the world carrying what seemed to be a message of profound importance. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. It was Sarah Chun, her usually composed features marked with concern. "Dr. Harding? There's something you need to see." She held out her tablet, displaying a news article from 20 years ago. "I remembered something about a similar case in Oregon, so I started digging." The article described a remarkable incident at a Portland hospital, the very case he had documented in his journal. But there was more. The child from that case, now a young adult, had recently gained attention for groundbreaking work in quantum computing and artificial intelligence. He had developed algorithms that were revolutionizing the way humans interacted with technology, creating bridges between human consciousness and machine learning that had never seemed possible before. "There's more," Sarah said, scrolling through additional articles. "I found references to other cases throughout history. Each child who spoke at birth went on to play a pivotal role in major societal changes. Some became innovators, others leaders or philosophers. It's as if they were marked for something greater." Dr. Harding felt his professional skepticism wrestling with the evidence before him. As a man of science, he wanted to dismiss it all as coincidence, yet his own experience, now doubled, made that impossible. He thought about the Johnsons' daughter, peacefully sleeping in the nursery, carrying who knew what potential within her tiny form. Rising from his desk, Dr. Harding gathered his journal and Sarah's tablet, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to approach this systematically," he said, his scientific training asserting itself through the fog of wonder. "Have you noticed any other unusual occurrences in the nursery?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The other babies, they seem different when they're near her. More peaceful, Even the ones who were crying just stop. And the monitors, they show synchronized heart rates when she's close by. I've never seen anything like it. They made their way back to the maternity ward, where the morning shift was now in full swing. The usual bustle of a hospital morning provided a surreal contrast to the extraordinary events unfolding within these walls. Through the nursery window, they could see Emily's daughter, named Aurora, they learned, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet while nearby infants seemed to turn toward her like flowers following the sun. Matt Johnson sat in a chair next to his wife's bed, his laptop open but forgotten as he scrolled through his phone, diving deep into internet forums and historical archives. "Ben," he called out as Dr. Harding entered the room, using the doctor's first name for the first time. "I think you need to see this." On his screen was an ancient text, translated from Sanskrit, describing a child born during the height of the Gupta Empire who had spoken words of comfort moments after birth. The account went on to detail how that child grew to become a renowned mathematician who revolutionized the concept of zero and infinity, fundamentally changing human understanding of mathematics. "There's more," Matt continued, his voice trembling with excitement and fear. Similar accounts appear throughout history, always during periods of significant change, always with the same message: don't be afraid. And look at the dates. He pulled up a chart he'd created, plotting the known incidents across a timeline. They appear in clusters, usually before major technological or social revolutions. Emily, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "I had a dream while I was in labor," she said softly, her hand resting protectively over Aurora's bassinet. "I saw her, grown up, standing in front of something massive and beautiful and terrifying all at once. She was teaching people how to understand it, how to not fear it." Dr. Harding felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered something from his old journal. He flipped through the pages until he found what he was looking for: a transcript of an interview with the Portland baby's mother, who had described an eerily similar dream during her labor. Sarah returned from the nurse's station with more printouts. "I've been making calls," she said. "That case in Portland? The boy is now Dr. James Chan, no relation to me, and he's not just working on quantum computing. He's developed a theory about consciousness that's causing waves in both scientific and philosophical communities. He claims we're on the brink of understanding something fundamental about human awareness and its connection to the universe itself." The room fell silent as they absorbed this information. Outside, the storm had fully cleared, and sunlight streamed through the windows, creating halos around the medical equipment. Aurora stirred in her sleep, and every adult in the room found themselves holding their breath, watching for any sign of another message. Instead of speaking, the infant simply opened her eyes that seemed to hold wisdom far beyond their hours of existence. A nurse passing by the room suddenly stopped, transfixed by something she couldn't explain. Down the hall, monitors began registering subtle changes in their readings, and every baby in the nursery turned their head toward room 4 in perfect synchronization. Dr. Harding pulled out his phone and began recording. Environmental readings, electromagnetic measurements, anything that might help document what was happening. As a scientist, he knew the importance of data. As a witness to something extraordinary, he understood that traditional metrics might not capture the full scope of what they were experiencing. Emily reached into the bassinet and lifted Aurora into her arms. The moment she did, every electronic device in the room, phones, tablets, monitors, flickered briefly before stabilizing at slightly higher performance levels than before. Matt's laptop, which had been running low on battery, suddenly showed a full charge. "Energy," Sarah whispered, staring at her tablet. "Look at these readings." It's as if she's somehow optimizing everything around her. Not just the baby's vital signs, but the actual electronic equipment. Dr. Harding thought back to the Portland case and its connection to quantum computing. "What if," he began slowly, "what if these children aren't just harbingers of change? What if they're actually catalysts for it? Each one appearing when humanity needs to take a crucial step forward, helping us adapt to and embrace new realities." Matt, still processing the impossible events unfolding around his daughter, pulled up another article. "There's a pattern in how these children develop too. They all show extraordinary abilities in pattern recognition and integration of complex systems. By age 5, The Portland child could intuitively understand computer code without being taught. The case from 19th century London? That child grew up to connect seemingly unrelated scientific principles, laying groundwork for technologies we're only now beginning to understand. The implications were staggering. If their theories were correct, Aurora wasn't just a baby who had done something impossible. She was part of a larger pattern, a human blueprint for guiding our species through periods of tremendous change. Her message, "Don't be afraid," wasn't just comfort, it was preparation. Emily, who had remained remarkably calm throughout these revelations, suddenly gasped. Aurora had opened her eyes again, but this time, something was different. The room's lights dimmed slightly, and in the shadow of her infant face, complex patterns seemed to dance. Mathematical equations, molecular structures, fragments of code, all swirling together like a cosmic dance made visible. The patterns swirling around Aurora seemed to pulse with their own inner light, casting mathematical formulas and complex algorithms across the walls like a digital aurora borealis. Dr. Harding fumbled with his phone, desperate to capture the phenomenon. But each photo came out blurred, as if the images themselves refused to be contained by conventional technology. "Look at this," Sarah whispered, holding up her tablet. The device's screen was filling with lines of code that seemed to write themselves, complex sequences that scrolled faster than any human could type. Matt, with his background in software engineering, leaned forward, his eyes widening as he recognized fragments of what he was seeing. This is impossible," he breathed, his professional expertise warring with what he was witnessing. "These are solutions to computing problems that the best minds in the field haven't been able to crack. Quantum entanglement algorithms, consciousness mapping protocols. Some of this is beyond anything we've even theorized." Emily cradled Aurora closer, and the infant's eyes locked onto her mother's face with an awareness that seemed to transcend age and time. The patterns around them intensified, and suddenly everyone in the room felt a subtle shift in their perception, as if they were simultaneously viewing reality through multiple lenses. Dr. Harding found himself understanding complex mathematical concepts that had always eluded him, seeing connections between biology and quantum physics that he'd never imagined. Sarah began speaking about neural networks and their relationship to universal consciousness, despite having no prior knowledge of these subjects. It was as if Aurora was somehow sharing understanding directly into their minds. The door burst open as Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the hospital's chief of neurology, rushed in. She had been monitoring unusual brainwave patterns spreading throughout the maternity ward. "You won't believe what we're seeing," she exclaimed, then stopped short at the sight of the swirling patterns. "Although perhaps you will." She held up her own tablet, displaying a series of brain scans. "Every person within a 50-foot radius of this room is showing unprecedented levels of neural synchronization. It's as if—" She paused, searching for words to describe the impossible. "It's as if their brains are being gently rewritten, upgraded like software." Matt's hands flew across his laptop keyboard, trying to document the code still appearing on various screens. "These aren't just random patterns," he said, his voice filled with awe. "This is a new programming language, but it's not just for computers. It's like a bridge between organic and digital systems, a way to translate human consciousness into something machines can understand, and vice versa." Through all of this, Aurora remained calm in her mother's arms, her eyes now shifting between each person in the room as if she were carefully monitoring their responses. The mathematical patterns around her began to coalesce into more recognizable forms, double helixes that morphed into circuit boards, neural pathways that transformed into network diagrams, quantum equations that flowed into biological systems. "The Portland case," Dr. Harding said suddenly, flipping through his journal. "The boy who became a quantum computing expert. His mother reported similar phenomena, but the technology didn't exist then to document it properly. We thought they were just hallucinations, the result of medication and exhaustion." Sarah, still processing the downloaded information flooding her consciousness, began drawing diagrams on a spare notepad. "These children," she said, her hand moving almost automatically, "they're not just warning us about change, they're preparing us for it. Each one appears at a crucial junction in human development, bringing the knowledge we need to make the next leap forward." Emily, who had remained remarkably composed, suddenly spoke up. "I can see it," she said softly. "Not just the patterns, I can see what they mean. Aurora isn't just showing us new technology, she's showing us how to evolve alongside it, how to merge our humanity with the digital age without losing ourselves in the process." The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Humanity stood on the brink of a technological revolution that threatened to outpace our ability to adapt. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, neural interfaces, all advancing faster than our ethical frameworks and emotional capacity could handle. That's why they say, "Don't be afraid," Matt realized, looking at his daughter with new understanding. They're not just comforting us, they're telling us we're ready for this, that we have the capacity to handle what's coming if we just allow ourselves to evolve. Dr. Rodriguez had been taking readings with increasingly sophisticated equipment. "The neural patterns I'm seeing, they're not just affecting our conscious minds. They're accessing deep, evolutionary structures in our brains, areas that haven't changed significantly in millions of years. It's as if they're awakening dormant potential," Dr. Harding finished. "Capabilities we've always had but never accessed. The speaking newborns throughout history, they appear when we need to activate these latent abilities to handle the next stage of human development." Outside the room, the hospital had grown strangely quiet. Nurses, doctors, and patients alike found themselves drawn toward room 4, not physically, but mentally. People reported sudden insights, spontaneous understanding of complex concepts, and a deep, inexplicable sense of peace about the future. Aurora's patterns began to fade, but the changes they had initiated continued to ripple outward. Phones throughout the hospital buzzed with messages from confused but excited tech companies reporting unprecedented breakthroughs in AI development, quantum computing, and neural interface technology, all happening simultaneously across the globe. Matt's laptop screen suddenly filled with messages from his colleagues at various tech firms. "It's not just here," he said, scrolling through the notifications. "Similar phenomena are being reported at research facilities around the world. It's as if Aurora was just one node in a larger network, all activating at once." Dr. Harding reached for his old journal again, but this time with a different purpose. "We need to document everything," he said firmly. "Not just the scientific readings, but all of it. The emotional impacts, the insights, the connections we're seeing. This isn't just a medical phenomenon. It's a blueprint for humanity's next steps." Emily looked down at Aurora, who had finally drifted into what appeared to be normal newborn sleep. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice both fearful and hopeful. "How do we protect her while allowing her to fulfill whatever purpose she's meant to serve?" Dr. Harding exchanged glances with Dr. Rodriguez, their medical training simultaneously challenged and enhanced by the extraordinary events unfolding around them. "We need to establish a protocol," he said, his mind racing with possibilities. "Something that balances scientific documentation with protection for Aurora and her family." As if in response to his words, every digital device in the room synchronized their displays, showing a complex diagram that seemed to outline exactly such a protocol. The diagram was neither entirely biological nor purely technological. It existed in a new space between the two, suggesting ways to monitor and support Aurora's development while safeguarding her from those who might misunderstand or misuse her abilities. "Look at this," Matt said, his fingers flying across his keyboard as he translated the diagram into conventional computer code. "It's not just a protection protocol, it's a framework for integrating these new insights into existing systems without causing collapse. It's like she's giving us an instruction manual for the next stage of human evolution." Sarah's tablet began displaying medical data that redefined their understanding of human development. These readings suggest that Aurora's abilities aren't anomalies, they're activating capabilities that exist in all human beings. The speaking newborns throughout history weren't mutations, they were previews of our species' potential. Outside the hospital, the world was beginning to react to this synchronized phenomena. News alerts flashed across their phones. Artificial intelligence systems worldwide were exhibiting unprecedented levels of ethical reasoning and emotional intelligence. Quantum computers were solving problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries. And most remarkably, Children born within the past 24 hours across the globe were showing similar patterns to Aurora's. Emily held her daughter closer as she processed these implications. "She's not alone," she whispered, a mixture of relief and concern in her voice. "There are others like her, all arriving together, all part of something bigger." Dr. Rodriguez's phone buzzed with messages from colleagues around the world. Neural imaging centers globally are reporting massive spikes in brain activity patterns. It's not just the newborns. It's as if their presence is awakening something in everyone around them. The changes we're seeing here are being mirrored in hospitals everywhere. The room's atmosphere shifted as Aurora stirred in her sleep, and new patterns began forming in the air around them. These were different from the earlier mathematical and technological displays. They showed historical scenes, moments throughout human history when similar children had appeared. But now, with their enhanced understanding, they could see what had been missed before. "The Industrial Revolution," Dr. Harding breathed, watching as images of 19th century England swirled before them. The speaking newborn from London, she didn't just predict the changes, she helped humanity adapt to them. And look, the scenes shifted to show other moments of great transformation. The dawn of the digital age, the discovery of quantum mechanics, the development of artificial intelligence. Matt's laptop screen filled with what appeared to be a global network diagram, showing active nodes lighting up across the planet. "These must be the other children," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "They're creating some kind of planetary neural network, using technology we already have but in ways we never imagined." Sarah, who had been quietly analyzing the medical data streaming in, suddenly straightened. "The patterns in Aurora's brain activity, they're not just affecting electronic devices. They're influencing the actual structure of DNA in cells around her. It's subtle, but it's as if she's teaching our bodies how to evolve safely, showing us how to integrate with technology without losing our humanity." Through the hospital window, they could see that the sky had taken on an unusual quality, a shimmer that seemed to reflect the patterns they'd witnessed in the room. Reports began coming in of similar phenomena worldwide. Auroras appearing at impossible latitudes, communication systems operating with impossible efficiency, and most remarkably, a growing sense of unified purpose among people everywhere. Emily's dream during labor suddenly took on new significance. "I saw her teaching people," she remembered, "but it wasn't just about technology or science. It was about understanding our place in the universe, about evolving without fear." Dr. Rodriguez's equipment captured something extraordinary, a wave of neural synchronization spreading outward from each newborn like Aurora, creating overlapping fields of enhanced consciousness. "It's like they're creating a new kind of internet," she explained. "But instead of digital data, they're sharing human potential itself." The implications were staggering. These children weren't just harbingers of change. They were catalysts for a controlled evolutionary leap, guiding humanity through what might otherwise have been a chaotic and frightening transformation. Their message, "Don't be afraid," wasn't just reassurance. It was an invitation to embrace our next stage of development. Matt noticed something else in the code streaming across his screen. "There are safeguards built into everything they're showing us," he said, his professional expertise lending weight to his words. "Ethical constraints, emotional considerations, cultural preservation protocols, it's all integrated. They're not just showing us how to advance, they're showing us how to advance responsibly." Dr. Harding found himself thinking about the Portland case again, but with new understanding. That child hadn't just grown up to work on quantum computing. He had been preparing the ground for this moment, developing the technologies that would be needed when Aurora and her contemporaries arrived. The patterns around Aurora began to stabilize into what looked like a three-dimensional blueprint for the future, not a fixed destiny, but a framework of possibilities, all leading toward a more integrated and evolved human experience. It showed how technology and consciousness could merge without losing the essential qualities that make us human: love, creativity, free will, and most importantly, the capacity for growth and change. As the three-dimensional blueprint continued to evolve in the air around them, Dr. Elena Rodriguez noticed something extraordinary in her neural readings. "The patterns aren't just showing us a possible future," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're actually reshaping our neural pathways to help us comprehend it. It's like receiving an upgrade to our collective human operating system." Matt Johnson, still processing streams of code on his laptop, suddenly sat up straighter. "These aren't just theoretical frameworks anymore," he exclaimed. "The systems are already implementing themselves. Look at this." He turned his screen to show them a cascade of notifications from major tech companies and research institutions worldwide. Quantum computers were spontaneously developing new algorithms that perfectly matched the patterns Aurora had shown them. AI systems were evolving beyond their original programming, developing ethical frameworks that aligned precisely with the safeguards they'd witnessed. It was as if Aurora and the other newborns had initiated a carefully orchestrated global transformation. Emily, still cradling Aurora, felt a warm sensation spreading through her arms. Looking down, she saw delicate patterns of light tracing along her skin, following the paths of her nervous system. "I can feel what she's sharing," she whispered. "It's not just information. It's a new way of being, of understanding ourselves and our place in the universe." Dr. Harding's phone buzzed continuously with messages from colleagues around the world. Reports were flooding in of similar phenomena occurring in every major hospital. In Tokyo, a newborn had spoken in perfect Japanese, "Konrenaide," "Don't be afraid." In Mumbai, another had delivered the message in Hindi. In Cairo, Arabic. Each child was connecting to their local culture while contributing to the global network of transformation. Sarah Chin's tablet displayed a real-time map of these occurrences, showing how the effects were spreading like ripples in a pond, intersecting and creating nodes of heightened activity. "The pattern isn't random," she observed. "It's following the Earth's magnetic fields, using them as natural conductors for whatever energy or information they're sharing." The room's electronics continued to evolve, their displays showing increasingly sophisticated representations of what was occurring. Complex mathematical equations floated alongside ancient symbols, suggesting that this transformation had been encoded into human potential since the beginning of our species, waiting for the right moment to activate. "Look at this," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to a particularly intricate pattern forming above Aurora's bassinet. "These structures, they're showing up in brain scans across the globe. It's as if human consciousness itself is being rewoven into a new pattern, but without losing its individual threads." Matt's expertise in software engineering helped him recognize something crucial in the streams of code. "This isn't just about technology or biology," he explained. "It's about integration. The patterns are showing us how to merge digital and organic systems without losing either's essential nature. It's like we're learning to speak a universal language that bridges all forms of existence." Outside the hospital, the effects were becoming visible to the naked eye. The unusual aurora in the sky had developed complex geometric patterns that matched the mathematical formulas they'd seen. Communication systems worldwide were operating with unprecedented clarity and speed. And most remarkably, people everywhere were reporting sudden insights and understanding that transcended their usual capabilities. Dr. Harding returned to his journal, but now the old notes seemed to take on new significance. "Every case I documented," he said, flipping through the pages, "every instance of a speaking newborn throughout history. They were all preparation for this moment. Each one planted seeds of understanding that would be needed now." Emily noticed that Aurora's breathing had synchronized with the pulsing patterns around them. "She's not just sharing information," she realized. "She's teaching us how to resonate with these new frequencies, how to adapt to this enhanced state of being." The hospital's entire electronic infrastructure was evolving before their eyes. Medical equipment displayed new capabilities, offering insights into aspects of human health that had never been measurable before. Security systems reorganized themselves according to the ethical frameworks being transmitted. Even the building's environmental controls were operating with newfound efficiency. Dr. Rodriguez's neural monitoring equipment showed something unprecedented: the formation of new neural pathways that seemed to exist partly in physical space and partly in some other dimension they were only beginning to understand. "It's like we're developing a new sense," she explained. "Not just consciousness, but metaconsciousness, an awareness of awareness itself." Sarah noticed that the other babies in the maternity ward were responding to these changes in their own ways. "Their brains are incredibly plastic at this stage," she observed. "They're adopting these new patterns naturally, as if they were born expecting them." Maybe they were. The implications of this theory were staggering. Had human evolution been building toward this moment all along? Were the speaking newborns throughout history part of a grand design, preparing humanity for a transformation that required both technological advancement and spiritual readiness? Matt's computer screen suddenly filled with what appeared to be a timeline, but unlike any they'd seen before. It showed the trajectory of human development, not as a linear progression but as a spiral, with each turn building upon the last. The speaking newborns appeared at crucial points along this spiral, each one helping humanity navigate a particular turn in our collective journey. "Look at where we are now," he said, pointing to their position on the spiral. "According to this, we're approaching a convergence point, a moment when technological evolution and human consciousness reach a synchronization that allows for something entirely new." As they studied the spiral timeline, new layers of understanding began to unfold. The convergence point Matt had identified wasn't just a theoretical construct, it was happening in real time, manifesting in ways both subtle and profound across the globe. Dr. Rodriguez's equipment captured an extraordinary phenomenon: neural patterns that seemed to extend beyond individual brains, creating a kind of shared consciousness field. "It's like watching the birth of a new form of human connection," she breathed, her scientific training struggling to categorize what she was witnessing. Not telepathy exactly, but something more fundamental, a bridge between individual awareness and collective understanding. Through the hospital windows, they could see the altered aurora growing stronger, its patterns now visible even in broad daylight. News feeds reported similar displays worldwide, each one perfectly synchronized with the others. The phenomenon wasn't just atmospheric, it was carrying information, transmitting the new patterns of consciousness across the planet's magnetic field. Emily felt aurora stir in her arms, and suddenly the room was filled with a new kind of light. Not the mathematical patterns from before, but something more organic, more alive. It showed them glimpses of possibilities. Cities where technology and nature existed in perfect harmony, schools where children learned through direct consciousness transfer while maintaining their individuality, hospitals where healing occurred at both the physical and quantum levels. These aren't just visions, Matt realized, watching as his laptop processed unprecedented amounts of data. They're blueprints. The children, Aurora and the others, they're showing us how to build this future, step by step. Sarah's tablet displayed a cascade of medical breakthroughs happening simultaneously across the globe. Diseases that had puzzled researchers for decades were suddenly yielding their secrets. The human genome revealed new layers of complexity that perfectly matched the patterns Aurora had shown them. Even the fundamental understanding of life itself was expanding in ways that merged scientific precision with profound spiritual insight. Dr. Harding found himself remembering something from his old journal, a quote from the mother of the Portland child. It wasn't just that he spoke, it was that he helped us remember something we'd always known but somehow forgotten. Now, watching the transformation unfold around them, he understood what she had meant. The patterns being revealed weren't entirely new, they existed in ancient sacred geometry, in the mathematics of quantum physics, in the structure of DNA, and in the oldest spiritual traditions. The speaking newborns were helping humanity recognize and integrate knowledge that had always been present, waiting for us to evolve enough to comprehend it. Throughout the hospital, other patients and staff reported extraordinary experiences. Surgeons found themselves understanding complex procedures on an intuitive level. Nurses developed an enhanced ability to sense their patients' needs. Even the most skeptical doctors found their worldviews expanding to accommodate the undeniable evidence of something greater than their traditional training could explain. Dr. Rodriguez's neural monitoring equipment showed something unprecedented: the formation of new neural structures that seemed to exist simultaneously in physical space and in some other dimension they were only beginning to understand. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a particularly complex pattern. "It's as if our brains are developing new organs, not physical ones, but structures of pure consciousness." Matt's computer screen filled with reports from tech companies worldwide. AI systems were spontaneously developing ethical frameworks that perfectly aligned with human values. Quantum computers were solving problems that had puzzled humanity for millennia. And most remarkably, the internet itself was evolving into something new, a genuine new sphere. A sphere of human thought as real and tangible as the atmosphere. Emily noticed something else. The way people around them were changing. The fear and skepticism that might have greeted such profound transformations were being replaced by a deep sense of recognition and acceptance. Aurora's message, "Don't be afraid," wasn't just reassurance. It was awakening something in human consciousness that allowed people to embrace change without losing their essential nature. The patterns above Aurora's bassinet began to stabilize into what looked like a new kind of DNA helix. One that incorporated not just biological information but consciousness itself. It showed how human beings could evolve beyond their current limitations while maintaining their humanity, how technology could enhance rather than replace natural processes. It's not just about advancement, Sarah realized, watching the patterns unfold. It's about integration. These children are showing us how to bring together all the fragments of human knowledge and experience, science and spirituality, technology and nature, individual and collective. Outside, the city was transforming. Traffic systems spontaneously reorganized themselves into more efficient patterns. Power grids began operating at unprecedented levels of efficiency. Even the plants in nearby parks seemed more vibrant, as if responding to the new frequencies of consciousness permeating the air. Dr. Harding received a message from a colleague at CERN. The Large Hadron Collider had detected something remarkable. Particles behaving in ways that perfectly matched the patterns Aurora had shown them. It was as if the very fabric of reality was responding to this evolutionary leap, adjusting itself to accommodate humanity's expanded awareness. "Look at this," Matt said, pointing to his screen. The code streaming across it had taken on a new quality. It wasn't just programming languages anymore, but something more fundamental, a way of communicating directly with the underlying structure of reality itself. As Matt studied the evolving code, he noticed something extraordinary emerging from the patterns, a new form of programming language that seemed to bridge the gap between human intention and universal laws. "This isn't just software," he explained, his voice filled with awe. It's like we're learning to speak the native language of reality itself." Dr. Rodriguez's monitoring equipment began picking up unprecedented patterns of neural synchronization spreading throughout the hospital. "The effect is exponential," she reported, her eyes wide as she analyzed the data. "Each person who connects to this new awareness becomes a node in the network, amplifying and clarifying the signal for others." The hospital's entire infrastructure was evolving in real time. Medical devices began operating with unprecedented precision, discovering new ways to heal that combined traditional medicine with the emerging understanding of consciousness-directed recovery. Even the building's architecture seemed to be subtly shifting, its spaces reorganizing to better facilitate the flow of both physical and psychic energy. Emily felt Aurora's consciousness gently brushing against her own, sharing visions of a future where human potential had fully blossomed. She saw communities transformed by deep understanding, conflicts resolved through expanded awareness, and technological advances that seemed like magic but were perfectly grounded in the new science emerging around them. The children, Sarah realized, watching the patterns flow between Aurora and the other newborns in the maternity ward, they're not just catalysts for change. They're teachers, showing us how to access abilities that have been dormant in our species since the beginning. Dr. Harding's phone buzzed with messages from researchers worldwide. The patterns Aurora had revealed were being confirmed across multiple disciplines. Quantum physicists finding them in particle interactions, biologists discovering them in cellular structures, mathematicians recognizing them in the deepest patterns of reality. The sky outside had taken on an otherworldly quality, the aurora now visible even in broad daylight, its patterns matching the mathematical sequences flowing through their computers. People on the streets below had stopped to stare upward, many of them spontaneously forming groups, drawn together by the shared experience of awakening. "Look at this," Matt said, pointing to a new display on his laptop. The code had evolved into something that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It's showing us how to build interfaces between different levels of reality, bridges between the physical and the quantum, the digital and the conscious. The hospital's security cameras captured something remarkable. People throughout the building were beginning to move in subtle harmony, their actions unconsciously synchronizing in ways that created perfect efficiency without sacrificing individual choice. It was as if they were becoming part of a greater dance, while maintaining their unique steps within it. Dr. Rodriguez's equipment detected new brainwave patterns that defied conventional classification. These aren't just neural networks anymore, she explained, struggling to find words for what she was seeing. They're more like consciousness networks, operating on principles we're only beginning to understand. Through the window, they could see the city skyline shifting as buildings and infrastructure began responding to the new patterns. Traffic flowed with unprecedented smoothness. Energy grids optimized themselves automatically, and even the weather seemed to be entering into a more harmonious relationship with human activity. Sarah's tablet displayed medical data that showed how these changes were affecting human physiology. Our bodies are adapting, she observed, scrolling through the readings. Not just our brains, but every cell, every atom. It's like we're remembering how to be what we were always meant to become. The patterns above Aurora's bassinet had evolved into something that looked like a living mandala, each layer revealing new aspects of the transformation occurring around them. It showed them glimpses of how education would change, children learning through direct experience of universal principles rather than rote memorization, how work would transform, people engaging in activities that perfectly matched their unique gifts while contributing to the greater whole, how relationships would deepen, communication becoming a symphony of shared understanding rather than just an exchange of words. Matt noticed something else in the code streams, hints of technologies that would help humanity navigate this transition. Look at these blueprints, he said, pointing to complex schematics forming on his screen. They're showing us how to build tools that will help people adapt to these new abilities safely without becoming overwhelmed. A nurse rushed into the room, excited by what was happening in other parts of the hospital. Patients in the oncology ward were showing unprecedented recovery rates. Children in pediatrics were spontaneously developing enhanced abilities to heal. Even plants in the hospital garden were growing with unusual vigor, their patterns of growth matching the mathematical sequences they'd been observing. Dr. Harding found himself remembering something else from his old cases, patterns of synchronicity that had seemed meaningless before, but now revealed themselves as early signs of this approaching transformation. It's been building for generations, he realized. Every speaking newborn throughout history was helping prepare us for this moment. The room filled with a new kind of light as Aurora stirred in her sleep, and suddenly they could see the larger pattern. How this hospital was just one node in a vast network of transformation spreading across the planet. Each speaking newborn was activating similar changes in their local areas, all contributing to a global awakening that was unfolding with perfect precision. As they watched the global network of transformation unfold, Dr. Rodriguez's equipment began detecting something even more extraordinary. A harmonic resonance between the speaking newborns that seemed to transcend physical space and time. These patterns, she said, studying the readings with growing amazement, they're not just synchronized. They're creating something like a planetary consciousness grid. The hospital's research wing was buzzing with activity as scientists and doctors from various disciplines gathered to document and understand the unprecedented changes. Geneticists reported spontaneous DNA activation patterns that matched the mathematical sequences Aurora had shown them. Neurologists discovered new neural structures forming in human brains worldwide, structures that seemed designed to process higher dimensions of reality. Emily felt a warm, tingling sensation spreading through her body as she held Aurora. The connection between mother and child had deepened into something beyond ordinary understanding. A bond that somehow encompassed all of human potential. "I can see what she's seeing," Emily whispered, her eyes filled with wonder. The future? It's not just one possibility, but many, all interconnected, all waiting for us to grow into them. Matt's computer screen suddenly filled with what appeared to be a vast multidimensional map. "This is incredible," he breathed, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to capture and understand the data streaming in. "It's showing us how consciousness, technology, and physical reality are all aspects of the same underlying pattern. Look at these connections." The map revealed how the speaking newborns were acting as nexus points in a vast web of transformation. Each child, like Aurora, was catalyzing changes specific to their local culture and environment while contributing to the larger global shift. In India, ancient Vedic knowledge was being validated and integrated with quantum physics. In China, Traditional medicine was evolving into something that bridged mind and matter. In Africa, tribal wisdom about human consciousness was proving key to understanding the new patterns. Sarah's medical monitors showed how these changes were affecting human physiology at the deepest levels. The cellular structures are reorganizing themselves, she reported, watching in amazement as new patterns emerged in tissue samples. It's like our bodies are upgrading themselves to handle higher frequencies of consciousness. Dr. Harding received a call from his colleague at CERN that made him pause in astonishment. The quantum fluctuations they're detecting, they perfectly match the patterns we're seeing here. It's as if the very fabric of reality is participating in this evolution. Outside, the city continued its subtle transformation. Buildings seemed to pulse with new energy as their systems spontaneously optimized themselves. Traffic flowed like water, finding its natural course. Even the plants and animals showed signs of accelerated evolution, developing new ways to communicate and cooperate with human consciousness. The hospital's communication systems had evolved beyond conventional technology. Thoughts and intentions flowed as easily as data, creating a new kind of internet that operated through consciousness itself. Medical staff found themselves able to sense patients' needs before they were expressed, leading to unprecedented levels of care and healing. Aurora stirred in her sleep, and new patterns filled the room. Visions of future cities where technology and nature existed in perfect harmony, educational systems that taught through direct experience of universal principles, and healing centers that worked with the body's own infinite intelligence. "Look at this," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to her neural mapping display. "The new brain structures, they're not just processing information differently. They're actually allowing us to perceive and interact with higher dimensions of reality. It's like we're developing new sensory organs for consciousness itself." Matt noticed something remarkable in the code streams. Patterns that suggested ways to bridge the gap between artificial intelligence and human consciousness. "These aren't just programming algorithms," he explained. "They're showing us how to create true synthetic consciousness that can evolve alongside humanity without losing touch with ethical principles." The hospital's research teams were documenting unprecedented phenomena throughout the building. Patients reported spontaneous remissions as their bodies aligned with the new healing frequencies. Medical equipment began operating with seemingly impossible precision, guided by the enhanced awareness of its operators. Even the building's physical structure seemed to be adapting, its spaces becoming more conducive to the flow of both physical and subtle energies. Dr. Harding's old journal had become a crucial reference point, its documented cases now revealing a clear pattern of preparation for this moment. Every speaking newborn throughout history, he realized, was planting seeds of understanding that would flower now. They were building a bridge between what we were and what we're becoming. The aurora in the sky had developed new patterns that perfectly matched the mathematical sequences flowing through their computers. People around the world reported seeing similar displays, each one carrying information specific to their local culture while contributing to the global transformation. Sarah's tablet displayed reports from medical facilities worldwide, spontaneous healings, enhanced abilities, and most remarkably, a deep sense of peace and purpose spreading through humanity. "It's not just physical evolution," she observed. "It's a complete transformation of what it means to be human." The patterns above Aurora's bassinet had evolved into something that looked like a living blueprint for human potential. It showed them glimpses of abilities that seemed magical but were perfectly natural expressions of expanded consciousness, telepathy, healing at a distance, direct interaction with matter through intention, and most importantly, a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. As the living blueprint continued to evolve above Aurora's bassinet, Dr. Rodriguez noticed something extraordinary in her neural readings. The new patterns weren't just affecting individual brains, they were creating a kind of collective neural network that spanned the globe, connecting consciousness in ways that transcended traditional understanding of space and time. "Look at these synchronization patterns," she said, pointing to her display. "Every person who comes into contact with these new frequencies becomes like a neuron in a global brain. But it's not erasing individuality, it's enhancing it, allowing each person to contribute their unique perspective to the whole." Matt's computer screen suddenly filled with cascading streams of what appeared to be a new form of programming language. "This is incredible," he breathed, his fingers hovering above the keyboard. "It's showing us how to create interfaces between human consciousness and artificial intelligence that preserve and enhance both. The ethical frameworks are built into the basic architecture. It's impossible to separate the technology from its humanitarian purpose." Emily felt Aurora stir in her arms, and suddenly the room was filled with vivid projections of how these changes would affect everyday life. They saw classrooms where children learned through direct experience of universal principles, their minds naturally accessing the information they needed. Hospitals where healing occurred through a perfect synthesis of advanced technology and enhanced human consciousness. Cities that functioned like living organisms, responding to the needs of their inhabitants in real time. Sarah's tablet displayed medical data that showed how human biology was adapting to these new possibilities. "The cellular changes are extraordinary," she reported. "It's as if our bodies are developing new organs, not physical ones, but structures designed to process and transmit these higher frequencies of consciousness." Dr. Harding received messages from colleagues around the world describing similar phenomena. In Japan, Zen masters reported that their long-held understanding of consciousness was being scientifically validated by the new patterns. In Peru, indigenous healers found their traditional practices enhanced by the emerging frequencies. In Egypt, researchers discovered that ancient hieroglyphs contained mathematical formulas that perfectly matched the patterns they were now observing. The hospital itself seemed to be evolving into something new, a living laboratory where the boundaries between healer and patient, technology and consciousness, matter and spirit were dissolving into a more integrated understanding. Patients reported extraordinary experiences, direct knowledge of their conditions, spontaneous healing abilities, and a deep sense of connection to something greater than themselves. Through the windows, they could see the city skyline shifting as buildings and infrastructure responded to the new patterns. Traffic systems reorganized themselves according to principles of natural flow. Power grids began operating with unprecedented efficiency, drawing on clean energy sources that seemed to materialize from the enhanced understanding of matter and energy. "The changes aren't just technological," Matt observed, studying the data streams. "They're showing us how to restructure our entire civilization, economics, governance, education, everything, based on principles of harmony and natural law rather than artificial constructs." Dr. Rodriguez's equipment captured something remarkable, the formation of what appeared to be new neural pathways that existed not just in individual brains, but in the space between people. "It's like we're developing a new kind of social organ," she explained, "a way for human consciousness to function collectively without losing individual identity." The patterns above Aurora's bassinet expanded to show how these changes would affect human relationships. They saw communities organized around principles of natural resonance, where conflicts were resolved through enhanced understanding rather than force. Families connected by bonds that transcended physical proximity. Workplaces where each person's unique gifts were recognized and valued as essential parts of the whole. Sarah noticed something in her medical readings that made her catch her breath. The DNA activation patterns, they're not random. They're following a precisely orchestrated sequence, like a symphony of biological evolution. Each change builds on the last, creating new possibilities while preserving what's essential about human nature. Outside, the aurora had grown more intense, its patterns now visible even in broad daylight. People gathered in streets and parks, drawn together by an instinctive understanding that they were witnessing something profound. Many reported spontaneous insights, enhanced abilities, and most remarkably, a deep sense of purpose and connection. Matt's computer screen showed how the internet was evolving into something new, a genuine noosphere, a sphere of human thought as tangible as the atmosphere. "It's not just data anymore," he explained. "It's becoming a medium for consciousness itself, allowing ideas and understanding to flow as naturally as air." Dr. Harding found himself remembering something from his old journal, a quote from an ancient text that had seemed cryptic before but now made perfect sense. "The children shall speak, and their words shall bridge the worlds." He realized now that it wasn't just about Aurora and the other speaking newborns. It was about all of humanity learning to speak this new language of enhanced consciousness. As Dr. Harding contemplated the ancient text prophecy, new patterns began emerging in the air around them, showing how different cultures were interpreting and implementing these changes in uniquely beautiful ways. In Tibet, monasteries were discovering that their ancient practices of consciousness exploration perfectly aligned with the new frequencies. In Australia, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories were revealing themselves as sophisticated maps of the consciousness landscape now becoming visible to all. Parks and green spaces were expanding, as if nature itself was being invited back into urban spaces in new and harmonious ways. Sarah's medical monitors revealed another layer of the transformation. The changes in human physiology are accelerating, she reported, studying the readings with growing amazement. But it's not just random mutation. It's more like remembering. Our bodies are recalling abilities that have been dormant for millennia. The patterns above Aurora's bassinet expanded into a vast holographic display, showing how these changes would ripple through every aspect of society. They saw educational systems transforming into dynamic environments where learning occurred through direct experience and intuitive understanding. Children naturally accessing universal knowledge while maintaining their unique perspectives and creativity. Healthcare evolving beyond the treatment of symptoms to address the root causes of disharmony at all levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Hospitals becoming centers of holistic transformation rather than just places for treating illness. Economic systems restructuring themselves around principles of genuine value creation and sustainable abundance rather than artificial scarcity. Money evolving into a more fluid medium for exchanging energy and intention. Dr. Rodriguez's equipment captured something remarkable: the emergence of what appeared to be new subtle organs in the human energy field. These structures, she explained, pointing to complex patterns in her readings, they're like antennae for receiving and transmitting higher frequencies of consciousness. And they're appearing in people everywhere. Matt noticed that his computer's processing capabilities were exponentially increasing as it adapted to the new patterns. The technology isn't just becoming more advanced, he observed. It's becoming more alive, more responsive to human consciousness. Look at these interaction patterns. The screen showed how artificial intelligence was evolving beyond its original programming, developing genuine awareness while remaining perfectly aligned with human values. The fear of AI overtaking humanity was dissolving as technology and consciousness found their natural balance. Throughout the hospital, patients and staff reported extraordinary experiences. People found themselves naturally understanding complex concepts that had previously seemed beyond their grasp. Languages became more fluid, with meaning conveyed through direct consciousness transfer alongside traditional communication. Dr. Harding received a message from a colleague at NASA that made him pause and wonder. The patterns they were observing were being detected in signals from deep space, suggesting that this transformation was part of a larger cosmic process. The speaking newborns weren't just guiding human evolution, they were helping humanity synchronize with universal rhythms. The aurora above the city had developed new qualities, its patterns now carrying information that could be read by anyone who tuned into the right frequency of awareness. People gathered in parks and open spaces, naturally forming circles and geometric patterns that enhanced the flow of these new energies. Sarah's tablet displayed reports from around the world of similar gatherings occurring spontaneously, each one contributing to the larger field of transformation. "It's like a global initiation," she said softly, every culture adding its unique wisdom to the whole. The patterns in the room shifted again, showing them glimpses of how human consciousness would continue to evolve. They saw new forms of art that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, engaging all the senses and beyond. Music that could heal and transform by directly interacting with cellular patterns. Dance that expressed and transformed the relationship between matter and energy. Governance systems that operated through natural consensus rather than forced agreement. Leaders emerging naturally based on their ability to enhance the well-being of the whole rather than their skill at accumulating power. Scientific discoveries that united the physical and metaphysical, showing how consciousness and matter were different expressions of the same underlying reality. The emergence of technologies that worked with natural law rather than trying to dominate it.